Hi again. William Barclay is giving the Greek background now to the Logos concept in John chapter 1. We began by saying that John's problem was not that of presenting Christianity to the Jewish world, but of presenting it to the Greek world. How then did this idea of the Word fit into Greek thought? It was already there, waiting to be used. In Greek thought, the idea of the Word began way back around 560 BC, and strangely enough, in Ephesus, where the fourth Gospel was written. In 560 BC, there was an Ephesian philosopher called Heraclitus. That's spelled Heraclitus. I suppose an alternate pronunciation would be Heraclitus. What was his basic idea? It was that everything is in a state of flux. Everything was changing from day to day and from moment to moment. His famous illustration was that it was impossible to step twice into the same river. You step into a river, you step out, you step in again, but you do not step into the same river, for the water has flowed on and it is a different river. To Heraclitus, everything was like that. Everything was in a constantly changing state of flux. But if that be so, why was life not complete chaos? How can there be any sense in a world where there was constant flux and change? The answer of Heraclitus was all this change and flux was not haphazard. It was controlled and ordered, following a continuous pattern all the time. And that which controlled the pattern was the Logos, the Word, the reason of God. To Heraclitus, the Logos was the principle of order under which the universe continued to exist. Heraclitus went further. He held that not only was there a pattern in the physical world, there was also a pattern in the world of events. He held that nothing moved with aimless feet. In all life and in all the events of life, there was a purpose, a plan, and a design. And what was in that let me read that again. And what was it that controlled events? Once again, the answer was Logos. Heraclitus took the matter even nearer home. What was it that in us individually told us the difference between right and wrong? What made us able to think and to reason? What enabled us to choose right and to recognize the truth when we saw it? Once again, Heraclitus gave the same answer. What gave a man reason and knowledge of the truth and the ability to judge between right and wrong was the Logos of God, dwelling within him. Heraclitus held that in the world of nature and events, all things happen according to the Logos, and that in the individual man, the Logos is the judge of truth. So we would perhaps liken the Logos in this application to the conscience of man. What is it that awakes us to right and wrong that's innate in every man, apparently? The Logos was nothing less than the mind of God controlling the world and every man in it. Once the Greeks had discovered this idea, they never let it go. It fascinated them, especially the Stoics. The Stoics were always left in wondering amazement at the order of the world. Order always implies a mind. The Stoics asked, what keeps the stars in their courses? What makes the tides ebb and flow? What makes day and night come in unalterable order? What brings the seasons round at their appointed times? And they answered, all things are controlled by the Logos of God. The Logos is the power which puts sense into the world, the power which makes the world an order instead of a chaos, the power which set the world going and keeps it going in its perfect order. The Logos, said the Stoics, pervades all things. Here you can see a problem with the idea that Jesus Christ died and didn't exist for 2 days until the third day when he rose again. If he is indeed the Logos incarnate, then there was no one governing the universe during that period of Christ's death. The Logos, said the Stoics, pervades all things. There's still another name in the Greek world at which we must look. In Alexandria, there was a Jew called Philo, who had made it the business of his life to study the wisdom of two worlds, the Jewish and the Greek. No man ever knew the Jewish scriptures as he knew them, and no Jew ever knew the greatness of Greek thought as he knew it. He too knew and used and loved this idea of the Logos, the Word, the reason of God. He held that the Logos was the oldest thing in the world and the instrument through which God had made the world. He said that the Logos was the thought of God stamped upon the universe. He talked about the Logos by which God made the world and all things. He said that God, the pilot of the universe, held the Logos as a tiller and with it steered all things. He said that man's mind was stamped also with the Logos, that the Logos was what gave a man reason, the power to think, and the power to know. He said that the Logos was the intermediary between the world and God, and that the Logos was the priest who set the soul before God. So the idea of a mediator is obviously very much there already in this idea of Christ being the only mediator between God and man. Greek thought knew all about the Logos. It saw in the Logos the creating and guiding and directing power of God, the power which made the universe and kept it going. So John came to the Greek and said, "For centuries you have been thinking and writing and dreaming about the Logos, the power which made the world, the power which keeps the order of the world, the power by which men think and reason and know, the power by which men come into contact with God. Jesus is that Logos come down to earth. The Word," said John, "became flesh." We could put it another way. The mind of God became a person. So he concludes this section on John 1:1 with both Jew and Greek. He says, "Slowly the Jews and Greeks had thought their way to the conception of the Logos, the mind of God which made the world and makes sense of it. So John went out to Jews and Greeks to tell them that in Jesus Christ, this creating, illuminating, controlling, sustaining mind of God had come to earth. He came to tell them that men need no longer guess and grope. All that they had to do was to look at Jesus and see the mind of God." And next time he's going to chapter 1, verse 2. The eternal Word. We'll continue this series. I'll put in a link this time, though, to Rudolf Bultmann. Now, Rudolf Bultmann is not conservative. Barclay was not conservative. I think he described himself as a liberal in terms of theology and his approach to the Bible. But Bultmann was a radical. He's way beyond Barclay. So if anyone's going to criticize the traditional doctrine of the deity of Christ or the Trinity, it's going to be Bultmann. What does he have to say? He wrote a very famous commentary in German, which is now in English. Bultmann did have a lot to say about John 1, so I'm going to put the video on where we talk about that. See you next time.